We're going to go ahead and get started. It looks like we're getting some more participants on the Zoom call. Hello, everybody. My name is Kinley Sweet. I am the Director of Digital Marketing here at BIS. And before we jump into the presentation, I wanted to go over a couple things with you guys. So we do have the Chick-fil-A gift cards that will be mailed out to all of you guys today. So be expecting those within the next few days. Hopefully next Monday or Tuesday, you'll be getting them in the mail. Also, if you do have any questions or anything that you would like to ask during the presentation, feel free to put your questions in the chat box, and we will try to get to them throughout the presentation. If we cannot get to them in the middle of the presentation, we will take all the questions at the end. Also, we do have a survey online that we ask that you guys fill out for us online on our website. It's askbis.com/bis-survey, and there will be a slide at the end of the presentation on that. If you enter your information for the survey, you will be entered into a drawing to win a $50 Big Daddy's Grill gift card. So make sure to do that at the end of the presentation, and we will go ahead and jump right in. So thank you guys for joining us today. Today, our presentation is on how to identify and protect you and your business from online scams. And our feature presenter today is Phillip Long. So Phillip, he is the CEO of BIS. He is a technologist and entrepreneur who specializes in providing technology solutions and security consulting to businesses along the Gulf Coast. He has worked in the IT industry for over 20 years. He has 600 plus clients that he's worked with, from Gulfport, Mississippi, all the way to Gulf Breeze, Florida. He currently owns 5 businesses, and he is also a certified information systems security professional. So thank you for hosting today, Phillip. You want to say hello and take on over?
Great. Thank you, Kinley, and thank you everyone for coming out today. I want to make this really a beneficial time for us as it relates to really, protecting your business from cyber criminals. And a lot of that comes from understanding where the threats are coming at us from. So we're going to address that today. And if you look at it, most of the threats that we're going to deal with, now this isn't all of them, but they're going to be coming in primarily through emails, web pages, and social media. And I think that it's important that we really highlight those, because if we're going to, basically take down our risk, we're going to have to spend some attention in looking in these areas. So whenever we look at how they're doing this, a lot of it is through phishing emails and phishing kits. And these kits are basically softwares and tools that are readily available out there on the dark web and things like that, and that anybody could go out there and grab. So it's really easy to get a hold of these materials, or whatever, basically the how-tos on how to be effective at online scams. And then we're going to talk about business email compromise, which is, they call it BEC, B-E-C. It's something that is really up and coming, and it's something that, as it relates to revenue loss, it's really something to keep an eye on. And then, of course, malware is malicious softwares is really the delivery of these methods by which we are, you click on an email and really they're going to put some kind of malicious ware on your computer, or they're going to, infect your server, or things of the like. So from a statistical standpoint, whenever we talked about, I mentioned business email compromise. In 2019, the Internet Crime Complaint Center, they recorded over 23,775 complaints about this business email compromise, and that equaled to $3.5 billion in losses. So we're talking big money. And one of the things to understand about that is this type of crime is so underreported. And a little later, we're going to talk about how to report this type of crime because it's difficult to catch these guys as it is with the dark web and just the way that they're able to, operate. We really want to, talk about how to submit a crime if a crime has been, committed, how to report it, I should say. And of course, we know that October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month. So, we want to pass this type of information along to our friends and coworkers and, other business owners because we really want to raise awareness because in order for us to stop this, we're going to have to really all lock arms and what we call defeat the breach. So, another statistic here is in 2019, there has been an increase of phishing email attacks by 65%. And then phishing is the number one reported cyber crime. And of course, phishing is where, in some way they're sending you out some type of email. And I'm going to explain that a little bit more in trying to trick you into clicking on something or giving away information. And then business email compromise is quickly rising as the number 5 reported crime. And we're going to go over that as well because it's really an emerging threat if you look at it. So let's talk about a little bit about phishing email attacks. But before I go there, I want to kind of set the stage for why cybercrime is so much on the rise. And, in a very simple sentence, it's because it's very profitable for the bad guys. That's number one. It's a very profitable industry with very low risk because of the way that they can operate, using the dark web or anonymous based IP addresses, and they can do their things in secret. There's also some other things whenever you look at as the world, on the global stage as far as resources. I'm sure every business owner on the call understands that, one of the biggest challenges probably for most business owners is finding qualified staff. Well, in the cyber criminal world, whenever you look at what's happening on a global scheme, there's a lot of areas that are economically suppressed, and I'll use Ukraine, that Eastern European bloc, as an example. They went through a stage there where they really saw a lot of importance, and they were what they call STEM training their college students. A lot of people were in college. A lot of them were, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So there's an educated group of young people there, and they don't have jobs. There's also a corrupt banking system that allows to change, cryptocurrency into fiat money, into whatever money. Like for us, it would be, the U.S. dollar. For them, I don't know exactly what their primary money standard is, but there's a way that they can do that in those cultures because the banks have a lot of corruption in them as well, and there's really no end in sight in this. So we're dealing with something that has all of the ingredients for making a very profitable. I'll call it a business, although we don't like to think of this maybe as a business, but as a business owner, you'd understand this is a profitable entity. You have resources that are available as far as humans that are ready, willing to go to work. You have a way to launder your money very easily, as well as I said earlier, there's a lot of tools out there that do this, that are readily available out on the dark web. You can purchase them for very low amounts of money, and you can be very successful at this if you can craft a good email. So that's really the stage on which we stand, and I really do not see a lot of success in stopping this in the near future for sure. So I want to jump into a particular type of phishing email attack, and they call it like the man in the middle, if you will. And if you look here, we have basically an attacker. They send an email to the victim. The victim clicks on the email and goes to a phishing website. This is just an example. They're going to go to a website that they think is a legitimate website, but it is not. It's actually the bad guy, the phishing website. And ultimately, what happens is the attacker then collects the credentials from the victim. They now know their username and password in order to get into that site. And then they can even pass that victim on to the legitimate website. They may see a blip in the screen, or, it may look a little funny or whatever, what happens on the screen. But, a lot of times whenever we're going from, the regular internet to what we would call a secure part of the internet where username and password would be, sometimes they'll have another pop-up that comes up and the like. So the end user really never knows that their credentials have just been stolen. This is a major way that the bad actors are able to attack us, because they now have our credentials. They have our credentials to this website, and sadly, a lot of people use their username is their email address, so that's a known, and they use that same password that is going to be for this particular example for this website. They may have other websites that are very common. Their Office 365 portal may use this same password, and of course the username is their email. So they can begin to collect and build a database. Of course, they've already gotten whatever access there is to this particular website, and they may sell that that access to that website. They may exploit it themselves. They may sit back and just collect more data and run more scans on different things that are very common out in the world with that same email address as username and password, and then they're able to just exploit and drill deep and drill often. When we look at it from a statistical standpoint, most of it is, most 83% of spear phishing attacks are brand impersonations. It would be, for instance, where you would have a fake Amazon or a fake, even a fake Office 365 or something. They're impersonating something that is likely that you might have. And with the social engineering that can go in behind this, and that's simply where they may look at your profile. They may look at your LinkedIn. They may determine where you work, and they may determine, what cities and that you live in. So they can build a profile as to the type of items that you may have, and they can send that email of that brand, if you will, and then they can execute their wares. And then another one is what they call sextortion. That's 11%. And that is where basically they'll send an email. I mean, a lot of people have gotten them. I've gotten calls from clients, and it's where they say, "Hey, your camera was on, and I caught you going to these sites, and I exploited your machine, and and I've caught you, and I've got videos of you doing all this kind of stuff. And if you don't send me some gift cards from Apple gift cards, or any type of gift card that they can basically convert into money, I'm going to release this. Don't worry, I've already taken all of your contacts, and you can tell because I sent this email from your email account." Well, if you looked closely, and we'll talk about that in a minute, they really didn't send it from your email account, although it looks like it at first blush. So people will literally, they will just, "Oh my word, my whole reputation is going to be tarnished and damaged. I've got to stop this," and they'll just quickly go out and send them money. And then on a very fast rise is this business email compromise, which only makes up about 6%, but it's really going to be the most profitable. And I'm going to spend some time on this because, as a business owners, who our audience is, this is something that is, we want to get on our radar. I do this for a living. And so I'm out meeting clients, seeing clients, and the like. And what I find is that this is very predominant, because just in the small touch of the world that we have and that I get to experience, people are calling me with problems that this has happened to them and trying to find solutions. So we're going to go over the problem so that you can fully understand it, because that's the only way you're really going to be able to protect yourself. And then we're going to go into talking about solutions to show you how it is that we're going to be able to protect yourself from it. All right, so Business email compromise at Beck. You're probably going to hear more and more of that. It's going to be on the news. I heard a thing on Fox News about it not too long ago. It's something that is out there and it's coming. You're going to hear more about it. And ultimately, it is an activity where a cyber criminal gains access to a business email account. And then what they're going to do is replicate the owner's identity, the proprietor's identity, so that they can deceive other organizations or even the organization that that you work for. And in 2018, it was 1.5 billion. Is this stat here? And of course, we had the stat that I just shared with a few moments ago. It was much larger in 2019. I can't even remember the stat right now, but it was like I think it was three something billion dollars. So we are seeing that this is something that is happening, and it's happening rapidly, and simply it's just really just not going to go away. um, so that's one thing that we want to key in on is this business email compromise and what it means. Okay, let's talk about how it happens. Ultimately, an employee email account is compromised by a cyber criminal, and it could be done a lot of different ways. Simply could be a simple email. I see very common is it'll say it look like it's coming, say, from Microsoft Office 365. Hey, your account is about to run out of space, but don't worry, there's a free upgrade. All you have to do is enter your username and your password, and we'll give you unlimited space from here on out. So people go in and they put in their credentials, and really all that was about was to get the credentials to that account. And then that account is then used to notify suppliers, customers, that maybe there's a change in invoice. And this is one that I've been within the past 3 months. I've been they kind of got caught up in this, and that basically the ACH, the automatic billing that's going to their banking information, needs to change. The customer, then they'll transfer their payments to the criminal's account ultimately, and then the cyber criminal starts to receive the money. And there's really no way to, or it's very difficult, I should say, to stop them from, once that money is in their account, they sweep the account, it's gone, and it's gone forever. And they have several different, I'm going to key on four of them here, of the types of scams, if you will, that they're running. One of them is what they call a false invoice scheme. This is going to be the number one thing, because all of a sudden you see, oh, I owe a bill, and it gets an emotional response out of you. Therefore, a lot of times when our emotions are going, we're not thinking as rationally as we might would. But basically, an organization with foreign suppliers are often attacked with this method, in which the attacker posed to be the suppliers requesting fund transfer for payments to an account owed by imposters. So ultimately, you would get a bill in, and maybe they even know who your vendors are, and they're going to say that you owe this bill or whatever, and it looks legit. It looks very legit. They could know your vendors by looking at who follows you on LinkedIn and all the like. Again, all of this information is out on the web, and then ultimately they're going to get you to pay a false bill. And it could be done because of the way organizations are often broken up. You have your sales and marketing, you have your operations, you have your financial, and then your service delivery. And a lot of times there are bills that other people create that the financial department pays, and there's really a lot of times a disconnect in to the services that are provided. So that's a very common way to send somebody an invoice and see if they'll pay it. Another one is where they're focusing on the CEO or other executives. Sometimes I call it like the CEO CFO scam, where they can actually gain access to the CEOs or the CFOs email, and they're just watching transactions, and they're going to impersonate that executive, and then send an email out to the rest of the company from the actual CEO's account. Sometimes it doesn't always have to be, but could be coming from the CEO's account. Like it looks real all the way. And it says, hey, one case that sticks out to me that I think of that was really exploited was a company that we actually purchased wireless equipment from called Ubiquity, and they got a hold of the CEO and the CFO's email, both of them, and they just sat on them and watched the transactions taking place. Well, the company happened to be into acquisition mode, and they were buying things. And ultimately, they were watching the guy's Facebook. They knew he was out of town or going out of town, and the CEO was out of town, and the from the CEO's email account, the bad actors send it to the CFO and say, hey, this deal we've been talking about putting together, we got to act fast on it. You know, I'm in Europe right now, but go ahead and wire the money. And here's the wiring instructions on where to wire the money. Again, they knew by social media where the CEO was, and they had been sitting on top of the emails for some time, so they were able to very successfully. And this was in the millions. This was big time money that was never recovered. Another one is what we call account compromise, where somebody gets hacked, and then they use their account. Say they use the billing account, for instance, from, say that they got your bookkeeper's account, and they started sending emails out to your clients and said, hey, we're gonna change where you're gonna get paid, and here's the new stuff where you need to send your money, and then boom, they got your accounts receivable going into their bank account ultimately. And finally, I want to talk a little bit about the the attorney impersonation, and that's where a hacker will mimic a lawyer or other representative from the law firm, and they'll talk about things that are about sensitive matters, and say, you did this, and we've caught you, or so and so is filing a claim against you, and they'll often set that up where they may even call you later and say, yeah, I'm going to call you, send an email to say they're going to call later in the day, again, to kind of build that credibility. But with all of the things that we have out on social media, it's pretty easy in order to build that. So I guess, kind of the takeaway there is that we have I'm just going to flash back here for a second. We have this ability to they have the ability to do all these things because of the information that is so readily available about all of us. And they have very savvy people, educated people. They have very high funded, these companies or these bad actors that really are, they're set up like a company, are highly funded, and they have the ability, just like we would go into a training or a brainstorming session about how do we do something good for the world. They go into their training and they do these very complex setups in order to ultimately steal money out of us. So I want to talk a little bit about just identifying um, email scams. And our end user is often the weakest link. And we can't forget that, because that's just the way it is. And like I said earlier, a fake invoice is the type of phishing, is the number one type of phishing email that's sent out, because I think it initiates a response within us. It really fires us up. Wait, I don't know that, or whatever. But they'll use very common things like iTunes. A very large portion of the population has an iTunes account. They may use Netflix. They may use a particular other Amazon, things that people really know about. UPS, things that are very very, you very well may could have a bill on those types of things. Here's another one. This is one where I was talking about, kind of like the CEO scam, where somebody would send something out. This actually happened from within my organization. And if you see the from, it says Phillip Long. And of course, you look at the email address, and it's not me, but basically it's telling one of my employees, hey, I'm in a meeting, you accessible, I'm in a meeting, uh, I need you to run a task for me. And this is kind of a setup kind of a deal where she's going to pop in there and say, hey, yeah, what do you need? Let me help you. And then they're going to say, hey, go get some Apple gift cards or who knows what, in a way that I need you to go buy this or do this, go buy these cards and give me the numbers real quick, and I'll pay you on your check, or I'll pay you when I get back to the office today, or something like that. And again, they can sit on top of your social media accounts if you're like posting that you're going to be out of town and stuff, so they can make this stuff really, really, really real. And for the naive employee that hasn't had proper cybersecurity training, they can certainly take advantage of them very easily. And one of the big things to look at right there is that this is an incorrect sender email address. You can make the from name anything you want to. And some other things is, that you may notice is, where is it, sent from my iPad? There's no email signature per se. And maybe like, well, I know that, Philip has email signatures on everything. You really want to be thoughtful in, looking for abnormalities, because the subtlest of things can trigger you to help protect yourself. Another one that you can look at, this is a FedEx one, and you can tell that they spelt the name wrong. It's still common, but if you look at from a standpoint of the world, and they've gotten way better on their spelling. And I think that some of that comes from where the attacks are coming from. I was reading a Verizon report basically on security, and a lot more of this kind of stuff like this is happening stateside. And so this type of, like, where they're trying to get you to click on things is happening stateside. So the spelling's better is what I'm trying to get out there, is the fact that it's getting more and more difficult to pick up on things because the bad guys are doing better things. Another thing is to recognize that, dear customer, most of the time, again, if you think about it, FedEx is, if you have an account with them where they're going to be emailing you, they're going to know you by name, and they're going to put your name in there. Although a scammer could put your name in there as well. So, but not maybe in a bulk format. That would be more of a spear phishing where they're targeting you specifically. But still, it's something that you can definitely catch on, is that whenever you look at these generic type things that are happening. Another one is kind of a repeat of the other one, where I showed earlier, is that one is very prolific, where they're trying to get you, especially it seems like they know about new hires. Like for us, Brooke is a new hire for us. And I think they watch our Facebook page, and uh, whenever we say that we've hired somebody, we put them out on social media. I think that's when they send that. And of course, they know your email scheme as to um, relate the like if you're using first letter last name, or first name dot last name and the like. They can find that out really, really, really easily, and then they just apply that a formula to the person that you just hired. Another one is what they call the double barrel. That's where they're going to use multiple emails to create more of a believable narrative. And the first email is simply to build trust. Hey, Jack, I'm about to jump on a flight. Just to let you know, I'll be sending you a file when I land or get Wi-Fi. And again, now all of a sudden you really lowered your guard on the second email that is coming, because this was just really more informative, and it makes you look and, okay, I'm going to be getting another email here in a little while, and I'll check it out whenever he sends it. But he's just trying to give me a little information. That's really getting more and more common as well. And then the second one is where I may put a file in there that has links in it, or malicious code, or something that is going to actually do the bad stuff to me. All right. Another thing is social media scams that I want to touch on because we're seeing more and more of it. I know I'm sure a lot of you saw the FBI came and how Russia and let's see, I can't remember. It was Russia and somebody else that is, they're Iran is actively interfering in our election right now, and they're doing basically a social media scam. It's not true, but it's out there. And of those, 91% are engaged of those approached by scammers on social media. The thing is, I mean, if you get you get somebody wanting to like your page or whatever, you're going to click, you're gonna respond, and 91% of the time, people do. And in the last 5 years, data from more than 1.3 billion users has been compromised, and that's ultimately 1/3 of all social media users. So um, this is not a platform that is very secure. If I don't know about you guys, but if 33% of is the mark for security, if 66% effective is a good mark, certainly it's not. So a third have been compromised across these social media channels. So obviously they're not that secure. And then again, we're going to talk a little bit more about this Internet Crime Complaint Center, but the social media has just on the actual complaints, which is way underserved as far as to know how many there actually are, because a lot of people never report them. There's been $78 million in losses on social media. So, and most of the scammers are using Facebook, of course, because Facebook being the most popular. But I wouldn't feel safe on other platforms because if they're not, they are being targeted. But if they're not being targeted as heavy as the users migrate more and more, like off of Facebook, more onto Instagram, I see some movements like that happening. Instagram is going to be targeted heavier. And there again, I'll refer to them as business owners because they're looking to go where the market is. And they will study the market, they will devise schemes to exploit the market, and they will extract money. And a lot of ways that money is extracted is through the form of data. And I don't remember what year, but there was a big article out, and it basically proclaimed that data had exceeded the value of oil on our planet. And that was even before oil went down to nothing. So we have to understand that our data is very, very, very valuable, and it's very flexible in the way that it can be spent. You could, use it to further exfiltrate data from someone, or to get into their bank account, or to fraud their insurance, or set up loans in their names, and a million other ways, credit cards, just a million ways that you can use that data. You can sell that data to someone else that would find ways to harvest the value of it. So our data is very, very, very valuable. And one of the things, I go into a lot of businesses, and I see a lot of people who don't take heed. I would say we could say it another way. They haven't done their due diligence, and they don't practice due care with the data in which has been entrusted to them. We'll use, just for an example, because it's easy, a medical practice. They literally have some of the very best data from a value standpoint on the planet, and oftentimes they are running systems and that are outdated. They're not doing the proper things. They don't have proper firewalls. They're not doing password management. They're not sending secure email, and ultimately they're putting their clients at risk. And again, October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and we want to bring that to attention to everyone, because ultimately whenever people give you their data, they are entrusting you with it, and there is a level of ownership and responsibility that we as business owners have to take. And I think as time goes on, we're going to see that there's going to be an Alexander Shannara out there that's going to figure out how to exploit the fact that business owners maybe weren't protecting data as well as they have. We're not seeing it in our market, but I am seeing it in I'm in some IT peer groups and in some of the bigger markets like Atlanta and Nashville. There are attorneys that are very savvy, and whenever a breach happens, they're basically representing those that lost their data, and they're coming after the guy who lost it. So something to be aware of whenever we really need to know where our data is and know how it's being protected. From social media, it's very much like email. The step one is manipulation. They're trying to get you to click. And then step two is the click. And then third is going to be some form of malware attack. And some of the ways that we can protect ourselves is to stay off of like survey sites. Some of the data also that these people are getting you to fill out, the little questionnaires that they're getting to fill out are really more harvesting data from you, information about you, so that they can use it. A lot of times, I'll give you for instance, a lot of times they'll ask you about, what city were you married, who was your best man, what's the name of your dog, just what's your spouse's nickname, things that could be used as a secondary question on like if they were, like sometimes if you log into your bank, they'll ask you questions if you come in from a different IP address or whatever. They're basically gleaning information, and we as consumers oftentimes are very willing to give that information up in these little types of surveys and quizzes. And another thing, we want to watch fake news articles that can basically get you to click and get into a site that is not a site that is a legitimate site, that's full of malicious wares and the like. And then also suspicious messages that come in. From time to time you'll see somebody trying to hit you up and on there, and you really need to just delete those right away. You don't need to open them or respond or anything like that, because trust me, there's not going to be something good that's going to come out of that. I want to transition a little bit and stay in this realm of ways that threats are being delivered. And when we start talking about Microsoft 365, we're really talking well beyond the what we would call just the applications, or maybe email, or whatever a lot of times we think about, because what Microsoft has done, and people are steadily migrating to it. I mean, us as a business we've had our own Exchange cluster, and we are now migrating everyone off to Office 365, really for a lot of reasons. They have great security. They can meet the SOC 1, SOC 2 compliance, the HIPAA compliance. They can meet the PCI compliance if it's properly configured. And the problem really that I see, and the compromises that I've been exposed to here locally recently, are because people didn't set up the security on them correctly. So that's something really to think about as we move forward. And we can talk about that really over this slide right here, um, talking about how this is really happening. And if you think about it, like say your Office 365 portal, it's basically open for business. And what do I need to do in order to transact with it? I need to have my credentials, right? I need to have a username, and my username is my email. I need to have a password, and a password that got scammed from you off of a shoe site that where you bought some shoes, that's never going to report it to the world. Um, is now out in the wild. And if you're using that password all over the place, which this is a statistic that is a little old, but I don't think it's changed that much. They say 65% of people are using the same password across multiple platforms. And what I'm saying is, in plain English, is your Office 365 password might be the one that you set up to on that account where you bought a pair of shoes, and it might be the same one to your bank, and it might be the same one to your Netflix and to your Facebook and the like. So, and every one of those has a different little avenue for how they would exploit. If I get your Facebook, maybe I'm going to go look at all your friends. I'm going to post stuff to your friends to get them to click, to do whatever. I'll just exploit your influence. And kind of moving back, let me get back here to what I'm talking about. But um, there's a way that they can exploit Office 365. They can send phishing emails um, to internal and external users, to people within your organization, as well as in your contacts or people that have sent emails to you. Again, you just think about looking down your email chain and think about the things that you're talking about with other business owners and friends and all the like, and just think like a criminal. There's ways that you could exploit that access, and then ultimately you may even get them to spread things further for you. Another thing is they may actually infect a machine. And it's a whole different conversation of how these, they call them MITRE or MITRE attacks are happening, but they can infect one machine with malicious wares. And then really what they're going to do is go start searching around the rest of the network, looking for the domain controller, really where all of the usernames and passwords are held, so that they can ultimately gain access deeper and deeper and deeper into your network, and then possibly steal all the data and maybe encrypt it on the way out, so that you got to double pay them. And they're going to charge you for the data, saying, hey, if you don't pay me, I'm going to release this data. People are going to know you lost it. And secondly, if you don't do that, I'm going to release it or I'm going to sell it. They're going to know you lost it, and you got to get the encryption key so that you can decrypt the files that I ransomed, for you on the way out. And then they could also set up various mailboxes and do redirections on your rules inside of, say, Outlook. And I'll give you an example. This really happened within 3 months ago. Client called, hey, I've got some problems going on. And with my email, okay, what's going on? Well, ultimately, someone had gained access to their Office 365 and they were watching their email account, and somebody owed them a invoice, and wanted to, or actually one of their vendors said, hey, I want to start paying you on ACH. I don't want to have to keep writing you a check. So they said, send me over your routing numbers and all that it takes to get me so that I can route money into your account. Immediately, that person saw that email, diverted it, moved it into the RSS feed, which is a folder. Nobody uses RSS feeds anymore, but basically diverted it into that folder and started talking to that, created a rule so that anytime that vendor emailed the client, it would automatically put it in that folder. And then the bad guy started corresponding, gave them routing numbers to pay, and $40,000 got routed into the bad guy's account. Never was accounted, never, ever captured. So there's just there's just so many, so many ways that things can be exploited and used. And I'm going to get here in a second. We're going to talk about really putting together some measures in place in order to lower your risk. Another thing that I think is often not known is this is in Microsoft Services Agreement, that they do not have a guarantee against data loss. If you had your machine encrypted or you had a loss of data, they're not responsible for backing it up. They would tell you that, under Section 6B, they're going to tell you that they recommend that you back it up and you manage that yourself, that they're not responsible for it. And I've seen a few clients get hurt that way because they thought, oh gosh, it was Microsoft, and I thought that they had a backup. So it's another thing to really keep in mind is thinking that, because Microsoft is now not just say email, but now we're storing documents in the cloud in OneDrive. Maybe we have a SharePoint portal where we're storing documents. Well, a lot of people put a lot of effort and a lot of time in getting all that mapped out, planned out in the creation of those documents. And then boom, it gets hit with ransomware and now you don't have it anymore. Could be a very devastating blow to your business. Looking at just how hackers are exploiting the cloud, very much like they're exploiting email and websites, and like we talked about before. But there's phishing campaign, the user clicks. It's a shame that in a lot of ways our security is exploited at its weakest link, and that's going to be the end user. And with COVID and the people working from home and mobile devices and bring your own devices, that threat has increased exponentially, and therefore we see, as I showed you earlier, that rise, the overall rise in the things that are taking place out in the marketplace. Tell you what, before I go any further, I want to pop in and do a quick poll question that I would be curious to see, just as far as our audience here today, about cyber attacks. We'll take just a minute here. I'm going to hold this open for about maybe 15, 20 seconds and see what we're looking at here about in the last 4 months, whether somebody's had a cyber attack incident in the past 24 months. We'll go just a second longer. Got a few more that could vote. Okay. Let me share these results for us real quick. So what we're looking at here, and we're looking at basically the people who voted. We have 33% of them have had a security incident in the last 24 months. And of course, 67 haven't. And I would think that that is something that is very accurate, probably with what I see. A large percentage, a third of the population of business owners are getting attacked. And, statistically, they say 1 in 5 gets a cyber attack every year. So 20%, if you're going to be in business 5 years, expect something bad to happen, which is a sad way of putting it. So, all right, we'll keep moving here. Here's some steps that we want to take if you have been attacked. One is you really want to report it, and I'm going to show you how to report it. You want to immediately go out and change your passwords. That is the easiest, fastest thing that you can do. I recommend using something like, we use LastPass. We actually use the corporate version of LastPass, where on shared accounts, my guys don't even know what the passwords are, and it's a good way. We can talk offline about that. And you want to freeze your credit card accounts. You can call up one of the agencies and say, hey, freeze my stuff. Some people keep their credit frozen all the time. And it's maybe a little more difficult as a business owner because of, just how things are. Sometimes, people are hitting our credit and, we got to run in there and unfreeze it or whatever all the time. But ultimately, that's a good measure to have in place. I use a product called, oh gosh, I'll forget the name of it. It's not, it's a company called Kroll that owns it, and they actually do the restoration, which I think is really cool. Like if something ever happens, I can call them and say, hey, get this fixed. And I've only had to use it one time, and it was with a Verizon account with a very low balance. But I reported on Thursday, and on Monday they had it fixed. Really a very powerful tool. It's called ID Shield. And if you have questions or whatever, we can share that with you later. But there's a lot of them out there. LifeLock being probably one of the biggest ones that'll kind of do credit monitoring and watching over more than just even your credit. And then you want to run a full scan. And I'll talk about that in just a second. I'll even tell you some ways that I've seen people get hurt, and when defining what a full scan really means. One is reported. And of course, we're going to share this out with you guys so you can have all of this, but there's a lot of different entities out there. USCert.gov, the Federal Trade Commission being another one. IC3.gov is really one of the main ones out there that is doing it. And one that we don't have on here, this is the Social Security Administration, if there's been fraud against that. One of them we didn't put in here, and I wish I would have, is the FBI. And one of the neat things about the FBI is that they will tar pit information. And what I'm trying to say here is that, let's say that you did something and you weren't practicing due care with client data or whatever. If they don't have to submit it, they won't. And they won't tell anybody unless it somehow got drug into court where they were forced to tell on it. So basically, any information that you share with the FBI as it relates to cybercrime is what they call tar pit, meaning that it's stuck there, it stays within that organization, it doesn't leave that organization. And of course, FBI, we have a place here that I think the nearest one to me is in Mobile. I've met those guys. They've been, they're really helpful, and we need to pull them in whenever we see things happening so that they can, even if it's just a matter of tracking it, so they can do public service announcements to let the world know. I'm on the FBI's. I'm also on on several other blogs, if you will, or reports where they send me this information so that we can see upticks within the communities and see really what our threats are. And it frames up some of the things that we talked to you guys about. When you change your password, don't use the same password more than once. I can't say that enough. And don't use common words. Kind of one of the things is I always say is at least 8 characters, needs to have numbers, special characters, as well as a capital. And you don't want it to just read just really, really, something plain. You want it to be something that would be almost impossible to be guessed. So you can kind of see that example of jellyfish, and then you see jellyfish, which is pretty much the same kind of thing where you could remember it, and maybe you put in the year your mama was born and the year your daddy was born or something. You can throw those things in there to where if you're trying to remember them, it's still possible, but yet they're distinct. But I really think we're past that as far as remembering goes in today's world. We're going to have to go more to a like a LastPass type storage product, because we just have too many accounts that require logins. The other one, of course, freeze your credit accounts. Go ahead and handle that. Right away, pick up the phone, you give them a ring, they'll freeze them immediately, and they'll report to you if somebody tries to do something. And then another one is perform a full business audit. And what I was talking about was we had this is a new client we're just bringing on board, and they were compromised on their local machines, and they of course changed passwords on all that, but they didn't change passwords on their email, and they took a second round of it. And without having, I'm going to talk a little bit more later about having tools where you can do a forensics analysis to know what happened. There's really some very cost-effective tools out on the market now where you can actually determine what happened, and you can do basically an audit to see, well, what all really got hacked. And I'll tell you where this could be helpful, and I'll define 2 terms. One term is a security incident, okay? And the other is a security breach. We'll call a security incident just ransomware. where basically they came in, they encrypted your files, and they tried to get you to pay them for the unencryption key. That's a security incident. No data was breached. And another one would be where no, they exfiltrated or they stole all my files and then they encrypted them. That's a data breach. And it's very difficult, especially with an encrypted system. It's almost impossible to know one or the other. And the rules by which you need to report and who you need to report to is greatly dependent on being able to make that determination. And of course, to do what is right, you have to make the determination that no, they probably stole it first. It's really getting more common that they steal it first, honestly. Just because I think ransomware has kind of put the fear of God in people, and most people are getting a good backup. But you know, so they steal the data, and I could show you. There's a company out there called the Maze Gang. I call them companies, and really they're bad actors. They're bad entities. I maybe should change my naming convention on that. But they're bad actors. They're called the Maze Gang. They're the ones that got the city of Pensacola. The city of Pensacola, that's why they had to buy LifeLock for all of their patrons, because ultimately um, they stole the data before they encrypted it, and it forced a whole new set of rules and all that as far as how you try to help make your patrons whole, if you will. All right, so let's talk about how we can stay protected. We talked a lot about what the risks are and some of the common ones, because those are the ones I want you guys to have top of mind presence on. Let's talk about how ultimately we stay protected. One, you really need to do some security training with your staff. Um, that is something that most of these things start with a click, and a lot of times it starts with just an employee. So your weakest link could be your employee clicking on something that could literally sink your battleship. One of the things that keeps me up at night, just being transparent, is the fact that a bad security breach. And here's a guy sitting here giving a seminar on security, and bang, we get whacked and something bad happens. It's very public, and we have to admit that we've had a security breach. That could be devastating. And I'm telling you, it's not above that happening. That's just, there is no silver bullet for me nor for anyone on this call, but it doesn't mean that you ignore it. So one of the big things we can do is train our people. Let's look at what a security attack is. Have a sense of awareness. Bob Groves with Intel, he said something that I remember. He called it productive paranoia. You want to be productive. You don't want to be paralyzed, but you want to be paranoid. You want to have a mind of looking out for. I always call it, another way I say is, I hope for the best, but I'm preparing for the worst. Another thing that you want to do is do some simulated phishing attack emails on your staff. You're going to find out who it is in there that is within your group that is the one that'll click on anything, and you can spend some extra attention with that group. Another is two-factor authentication. I'm going to talk about that, but before I get there, I want to talk about how many people are on this, how many people are using two-factor authentication and to what level. So the question is, do you use multi-factor authentication? And I guess I really should have done it afterwards, so I explained it a little bit better, but that's basically where you may have to, it may text you some number that you have to put in, or maybe there's an app or something like that. But with this, how many of you are using it, and how broadly are you using it? So, all right, we'll end the poll there, and we'll look here. Basically, 33% are using it on some accounts. 33% are not using it at all, and then 33% are using it on all accounts. So that's something, as far as from a remediation standpoint, that is one of your absolute 100% best ways to protect yourself. So two-factor authentication, I'm going to talk about that in just a second, a little more in depth. So something that is probably, as far as bang for the buck, that's going to go the farthest. And then finally, proper email filtering is extremely important because of the way that most of these malware packets or these threats are being delivered is through email. And then finally, cyber liability insurance is, to me, what I would call almost the last line of defense. And I'm going to go over what a good cyber liability insurance policy looks like, because I do a lot of auditing of people's cyber liability policies, and there's a bunch of them on the market that are not that good. And really, even more than that, there's companies who don't even have it. And what you have to understand from an insurance perspective, cyber liability, the cyber threat is in insurance world, um, is a very new type of a threat. Um, you wouldn't think it that way, but insurance has been around a long time, and like a business errors and omission or professional liability policy, 10 years ago wouldn't really have had a cyber component because people weren't exploiting at the level that we're seeing it today, even to small business. So, this is something that's really happened, probably over the last 10 years, but really blown up over the last 5 years. And it's got to the point to where, to me, it's just like having a professional liability insurance policy. You've got to have cyber liability policy because it's probably going to be one of your greatest risks. All right, so we're talking a little bit about proper training. I already really talked about that. You can do that a lot of different ways. You can do it in class. You really need to incorporate it into huddles that you do within your company. There needs to be repetition. You need to have a mindset of security within your organization, and kind of build a culture around that, because it is, quite frankly, probably a business's one of the top threats. And one of my goals in what I do for a living is to change people's mindset. A lot of times people have the mindset that security or technology or whatever, that's an IT problem. Well, really, it's not. It is, but it's way greater than that. It's a business problem. And if you're going to remain in business, you're going to have a viable business, you're going to have to do these things moving forward. We saw that within the past 24 months, 33% of the folks on the seminar today have been hit. It's not something that is obscure. It's very common. Another is simulated phishing attacks, and that's just basically where you send out an email that is very much like what a real bad actor would send out, and that would be something that you would want to send out. And we've got some cool tools that will actually kind of score your people, so that you can identify your weakest links. I'll talk about that a little bit later. It's important to to know. In this case, you need to work with those people, or basically return them back to industry if they're just too much of a risk for your company, because point there is you got to identify them. You got to know where your risks live to identify them. Finally, let's talk a little bit about two-factor authentication, just really because I want everybody to understand it. I want everybody to incorporate it in what they're doing. And it's really quite simple. And the kind of the standard by which I would apply this would be, and these are my terms, so don't Google these terms. These are Philippisms, I guess. But if there's a one to many, and I say that like if I have one, username and password, and I can access many records, maybe, or it's very valuable, like your banking, or if it's if it's your CRM, where all of your clients live, or whatever, you need to have two-factor authentication. And it's really quite simple to set up. And basically, you enter usually your username, which is oftentimes your email address, and your password, and you hit sign in. And then on your phone, either a code gets texted to you, or there's an app that runs on your phone and it says, hey, you just got a request to log in, and most people have their phone within 6 inches of their body. They know if they try to log in, they just simply click the green button, bang, they're logged in. That is the most effective form of security for the very lowest cost, bang for the buck, that you can almost have out there. So much so that Microsoft claims that of all the breaches that they've had and all the exploits and everything, that a very high percentage, I can't recall, but in the upper 90s of percentages, it had the end user use two-factor authentication, those breaches or threats or whatever would never have happened. And then I want to look a little bit about proper email filtering. And ultimately, there's a term I'd like everybody to understand. It's called advanced threat protection. And with that, you get an email that comes in and say it has an unknown attachment. The attachment is scanned, the links are scanned within the email, and if there's anything malicious, there's an email notification sent saying, hey, this thing had malicious code in it, but it never delivers it to the end user to click on. And just simply having it to where the links are scanned so that 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 link is not malicious, that it's safe, that alone was such an increase in security. And again, it's doing that, not only that with the with the links within the body of the email, but also in the attachment, making sure there's no malicious code in a file or an attachment. That's really a huge step forward. As well as the tool that we use also allows you to send encrypted mail very easily. And you can just put, like we usually set up the symbol at and then secure. You put that anywhere in the subject line, boom, your mail is now being sent secure. I can't tell you how many times I've met with the accounting or the CFO person at an organization, and they're emailing the spreadsheet to the 401k people with absolutely every employee's everything, their name, their address, their social security number, their date of birth, and they're just sending it out over clear text, in email. And that's very dangerous to do. Those types of files really need to be sent securely. Another avenue, which is really a conversation unto itself, but there are a lot of entities out there that are helping in the ability to make sure that you are who you are. And there's a DKIM, there's an SPF, and there's a DMARC policies that need to be set up on your email, on your domain. And what these are basically doing is they're different forms of being able to say that you are who you are based off of where your domain is registered. And again, this will get real technical real fast, and I'm not going to go into that with us today, but I can talk offline about it. But you need to have your DKIM, your SPF, and your DMARC policies set within your where your domain is hosted, because if you don't, people could spoof off of you much easier. You also have a higher chance of winding up in somebody's spam filter, because if you don't have these set up, your email can automatically have a more of a weight, if you will. And kind of the way spam filters work is they know what IP address you have, they know about how many emails that IP address sends, and they know the links that are in the email and all the like. So these spam filters are very rapidly checking this email, and they're putting weight on it, if you will, to determine if it is spam or not. And that's how come sometimes you can send one email, it goes straight through and nobody says anything about it. You can send the next one and slight changes, maybe there's some links in the email, and then boom, you get caught in the spam filter. It's just the way that the email world works, and they start to weigh it more heavily. And without these things set up in the future, it's happening now already, but it's going to become more and more of a component where you're going to wind up in spam folders if you don't set this stuff up correctly. And then item number 6 is cyber liability insurance. This is, again, a big topic, but there is there's different areas of coverage, what we call a first party and a third party coverage. And some are basically, protecting you as the business owner. And that has to do with, proper data destruction, extortion, which would be, ransomware. And one of the challenging things specifically to ransomware and extortion without cyber liability insurance, let's say they wanted $20,000 for you to get your files back, to decrypt your files to give you the code. Well, you did the math, and I've done the math with clients before, and they say, wow, man, I don't have a backup of those files. And, I'm an engineering firm, and I know that just work in progress, it would set us back, 8 weeks. And that's a 6-man team that created those. And they quickly run the math, and they think about the damage it would take to their client and all that stuff. They go, yeah, I paid 20 grand in a minute to get those files back. So you got to pay in Bitcoins. Well, with anti-money laundering laws within the United States, you're not able to just say, hey, give me 20 grand worth of Bitcoin very quickly. There's like a 7-10 day hold on that. And most of the bad actors are saying, you got to give me my money in 7 days. Now, you can negotiate with them and all that, but at the end of the day, without a good cyber liability insurance policy that has this extortion component, which literally you turn that over, there's a team of people that work that have Bitcoins that are negotiators, and they'll do not only the negotiation and pay them in Bitcoin immediately. They will handle all of the transaction, even actually decrypting the files for you. So really a lot of value in what they do if you ever need them, and they're good. They're really good. And then of course you want to protect from online theft. That might be some way of where wire fraud or something like that, somebody actually hacking your account. And then also even it's not on here, but even the time your business was out of work. Usually most policies have it where after 8 hours, whatever profits you made or whatever, it protects your business for after 8 hours of downtime, so that you're able to recoup the revenue that you would have lost. And then also to repair the cost of the software, to format, reload your machines, and to rebuild your network, and all that is covered. And then the third party things are things like I talked about, the city of Pensacola that had to buy some form of a ID protection like LifeLock for all the people. It'll pay for that. Also pay for if you're found negligent. And that's of course in the courts world, in that kind of that world of legalese, you never want to be found negligent because it's very costly. They'll pay that. And then, if network privacy and network liability claims where they're saying that you lost something, or that you ultimately are the blame for what got lost. Breach of contract, you couldn't meet a contract because of your system was down because of what happened. And then also just the slander, defamation of things. If they were to hack your website and they were to put pornography out there, or something that would basically damage your brand, you're actually covered for that. So this is, again, a bigger conversation, but it's a conversation that you need to have. You need to look at your policy. At one point, we had a rider policy on our errors and omissions policy, and it had nowhere near the areas of coverage that were needed. We were at great risk, and I didn't even know it. And fortunately, we looked and we found it, and I want to make everybody aware of that. This is basically the model by which we want to follow. You want to prepare, you want to prevent, and you want to prevail. And the preparation is really knowing where you stand, knowing what you do have at risk, and you do that by doing a dark web scan to know what's out there on your company. Doing cybersecurity education on your staff, having documents, I call them governance documents. There's documents that are required that that you need to have in order to protect your organization: an acceptable use policy for the internet, a computer use policy, a bring your own device policy. There's about 11 or 12 policies. And it's important that you have those, because I actually was I think she said earlier, I'm a certified information systems security professional, which is a high certification on cybersecurity. So I'm used not often, but I have been used occasionally on trial. And basically, a company asked me to represent them. They didn't really have a good case to stand on, and one of the employees was doing some things on the network, and the employee said, "I didn't know I could do that." In very layman's terms, "Hey, I didn't know I couldn't do that." And the judge says, "Well, show me the policy where they signed off saying that you informed them that they couldn't do that." They couldn't produce that document. So really the employer took a big hit. Now, what he was doing, if I told you what he was doing, everybody go, "Heck yeah, everybody should know they shouldn't be doing that." But that doesn't matter in the court of law. You have to have the documents in place. Again, that simulated phishing email is very important to keep people on their toes, and to finally, that employee vulnerability assessment where able to um, you're able to know where your weak links are so that you can make decisions based off of real data. And then the prevent phase is ultimately you're looking for um, a defense in depth. You can't just have antivirus on your machine and think you're safe. You've got to be protecting your email. You got to have firewalls. You got to be patching. You got to manage your passwords. And the list, sadly, is not getting shorter. It's getting longer as to what it really takes. But um, the proactivity at which you take it, I promise, pays huge dividends. And really even assessing where your risk is. A lot of times I see clients and they spend a ton of money doing, say, a penetration test or something, and they don't even have a firewall. I mean, you ought to spend that money on a firewall, because you're going to fail a penetration test horribly if you don't have a good firewall. Again, they get kind of caught up in the language of IT, and somebody comes in there and sells them a bag of goods that they shouldn't really even be doing. With a brief assessment, they should say, "Look, man, I tell you what, here's the low hanging fruit, and we can knock down 50% of your risk by doing these three things." And then maybe we ought to talk about getting a little deeper. But anyway, uh, and then prevail, disaster recovery, business continuity plans, knowing how long you can be without your data. Simple question. Having an incident response team. You can write this out on a napkin almost. I mean, to know what you're going to do when something bad happens. You'd be surprised. People just totally freak out, and it's a horrible situation as a provider to be in, because it's a bad situation already, and basically you don't even know where to put the band-aid, because there's nobody knows what's going on. Then of course cyber liability insurance, spoke about that. And then really breach public relations coaching. I have seen a big hospital that got hit, and the camera and the mic got poked in the guy's face, and he said no comment. That is not what you want to say. You want to say something like, "I assure you this is a horrible day for us, and we've done our due diligence, we practice due care, we have a full team on this, and as we receive data as to how this happened and all this, we're gonna give you more information." Something brief and short, but again, having that plan put together can really save you a lot. This is something that I think is really neat, and I think it'll help you understand the defense in depth strategy that I'm talking about. Most people have a home, or they of course live somewhere, and if you think about it, really what you're trying to do with your home is very much what you're trying to do with your business. And there's ultimately three ways that you can protect your home. One is you want to prevent the damage or theft from intruders gaining access. You want to have locks on the doors, stuff like that. Then we want to detect them, as they're happening, maybe even a little more proactively. And then we want to respond. And if you look at it in the prevention phase, we have external lights. We have, a garage key code. We have protection signage. This house is protected by ABC security. Our windows and our doors are locked. We may have a barking dog inside. We have these things that are set to prevent it. And then We may have other things that are actually going to detect when something is going on. And that could be neighborhood watch, it could be cameras, it could be motion sensors, it could be, smoke and carbon dioxide type detectors that are happening within our house, so that we have a system of automation that is going to tell us when something bad is happening. And then we want to have some form of response, and that may look like a security monitoring service that automatically dispatches the fire department or the police or the paramedics. We have a high decibel alarm to notify the neighbors to come over and help and to get involved. We may even have a weapon within the house, so that if someone did come in and they were trying to do harm to you, you'd be able to protect yourself. And I think that's pretty logical for how we think about our home security. And it's a lot the same way with your business. We want to prevent unauthorized access or malware from running, and we're doing that a lot of different ways. We're doing cybersecurity awareness training. We're trying to make people aware so they don't click to get something. First order of business: do no harm. Don't allow people to start something. Then we want to manage our passwords. That's another great kind of preventative way. We want to patch our software. We want to have a good firewall. We want to have good desktop, endpoint security, or what we call antivirus. Those are all very critical in the stages of prevention. And then another thing from a detection standpoint, kind of more of a proactive thing, we want to have some threat intelligence. We want to know what's coming in the firewall, what's hitting our antivirus. We want to have some insight as to what's going on in the market. And there's really a lot of great services. Most of these products nowadays have those subscription-based models that are doing that for us, telling us who's got bad IP addresses and blocking them from even talking to our firewall, and what types of malicious codes are being launched, so that we can automatically stop that code from running. We also may want to have log monitoring. I spoke about earlier the security incident versus the security breach. Without having a form of log monitoring that's being sent off site, that's protected and it's kept in a state that can't be altered, you really can't tell what happened often, because one of the biggest things that the bad actors do is they delete all the logs. That's part of the game that they play. And then some newer type things that a lot of people probably haven't heard or talk about is, they call it SIM, and it's Security Incident Information Event Management. Security Information Event Management. And really what it's doing is taking those logs, and they are using algorithms. They're using artificial intelligence is another very popular term, same thing. And they're looking for anomalies, and they're being able to identify when something bad happens or is about to happen, the staging for something bad to happen. And then IDS's intrusion detection systems that are, again, like I talked about earlier, watching those IP addresses, knowing who's trying to talk to your organization, and being able to just block their IPs flat. Just like, nope, you're a bad guy. I don't even talk to bad guys. And finally, from a response standpoint, um, you want to look at some things where you're able to, like the 24/7 Security Operations Center monitoring and response. That's basically the data that's being collected from the logs and the SIM that is, picking up on those anomalies. They get kicked over to a Security Operations Center, and they're monitoring that network, and they're able to make determination, and that leads us to the automated threat remediation, where they can disconnect that machine from the network. They can stop that process from running. They can call you on the phone. They can text you. They can do all of these things from a standpoint of alerting as well as remediating, actually stopping the spread of that type of a breach. And then finally, from a forensics investigation standpoint, being able to have those logs in a forensic format so that they can be parsed and then go, hey, we see what happened, and this is exactly what files they touched, and this is the damage that's done. is super duper important, as well as, even on the way, along the way, we are now more and more getting requests from people to help us fill out their paperwork, basically from who their software company is or their bank or whoever, making sure that, from a credit card standpoint, that they're secure. And you can get these like a PCI compliance report that's emailed to you, and you don't have to do it once a year or whatever they do. It's really 24/7. They're monitoring you for PCI compliance or HIPAA compliance, or I think there's 35 different types of entities, whether we have a power plant that is NERC and FERC, that they're regulated by. We have financial people that FINRA watches, over them, but it has that report so that it's easy to prove that you're doing it. And then also it has that protection in that it's basically keeping up with those standards 24/7, 365. So really, this is the type of level that we need to be operating on as business owners in order to really be able to protect our companies. All right, so we kind of get down to the really, what do you do? And I always ask that question because information without action is pretty useless in a lot of ways. And I hope that, at some level we have gotten, something that you guys can make actionable. Well, we can help you become actionable. And for everyone on the call, we give away a free cybersecurity starter pack that has a lot of information. First, we're going to do that network vulnerability summary. That's what I talked about, where let's get a baseline. Let's look at where you're at so that we know where best would be to lower your risk. What would you do in order to lower your risk? And you want to start off at the highest risk, right? And work it down: high, medium, low risk. As a CISSP, that's what I do. I'm trained in that area. And as a small business owner, I'm also trained in trying to get the most value for the dollar. And then let's look at your backups. That's really a very major component, and it is often sorely neglected. And then looking at your Office 365 security scoring to see how you are managing your Office 365, because it's a huge risk to you. Most people, it isn't even on their radar. And then put together a little technology roadmap. This is just something where, kind of, mapping out from a future expenditures, because Rome wasn't built in a day. We want to come in, do the assessment, look and see where we are, and then figure out, what would be a roadmap over the next, 24, 36, 48 months in order to get you into a better position, and explain the value of what we want to do and why we want to do it. And then I'll also give you those 13 governance documents that that are sorely needed within your organization. And then we'll do that free cybersecurity training with your and phishing, email attack, dark web scan, and give you the report on your employees so that we can help you determine who your lower risk employees are. And really, it's a network evaluation, dark web scan, and then Office 365 portal. And note that that is free. And I'll tell you, it's well worth more than $1,299, because I'm the guy that does it, and I'm pretty thorough, and I understand from a business perspective what we're looking to do. So that's really for everybody who is on the call. And I would like for you guys to fill out our survey. Of course, we're going to give you a free gift card to Chick-fil-A, I think, to have lunch. We'll send out, but this is in addition to that. And if you fill out this survey for me, you can go to askbis.com/event survey. It helps us in a lot of ways in order to, was this material, is it the right speed for the average business owner in our market? Is it too techy? Is it not techy enough? There's some questions on there where you can rate the material that we have presented, so that we're, more in line with, what you want to hear about. And there's an opportunity to talk about other things that you want to hear about as we form our future seminars and webinars. We take this data. So it's really important. And one of you will receive a $50 gift card to Big Daddy's Grill. All right, Kinley, that's all I have. And I'm 1 minute overdue right now. So is there any questions or anything out there?
I don't think so. We haven't gotten any questions come in so far.
All right. Well, um, in the sake of time, I really like to respect your time, so I want to go ahead and get off. We'll give everybody if anybody's got a question or two, you can always take it up. You can email Kinley or myself, or events@askbis.com. We'll have somebody get right back with you. And if you'd like to take us up on that free cybersecurity pack, you can email us, and we're happy to schedule a time in the near future to come out and do that. So I would like to thank Kinley for you and all your work getting this put together, and all of our folks that helped, as well as all of you guys for hanging in there. And hopefully this can be something that we can do together to defeat the breach.
Thanks, guys.